Good morning, everyone. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. Toss. No. Nope. Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay. All right, talk to you. Thanks. Okay, good morning, everyone. 8 a.m. on Wednesday, April the 15th. Lose track of days and time, locked up here in the house. So this morning, I'm John Resso with Wells Darby. Rob Clemens is in the background. He'll be answering the questions and launching our polls. We're going to have about half a dozen poll questions. They're very simple, but just want to keep everybody engaged. So this morning, our goal is to go through Conex Banniger air conditioning and refrigeration press fittings, and then we'll go through a little bit of the Isoclima line sets and some of the new features that are involved with the line sets, and so you guys understand how these two marry up. About Conex Banniger. Conex Banniger has been around for years, since 1909. They basically have locations all over the world. They ship into the US. They manufacture the fittings that we're going to review today in Spain, and the headquarters is in the UK. As I said, they've been around since 1909. Any change in the copper market, they've pretty much been a part of it because they had manufacturing facilities. So even though it may have been their idea, it may not have been their idea, but they've been involved in the majority of the change in the copper industry. Leading up to where we are today, 2015, they started to develop this product. 2016, Wells Darby, we took the product on, and it's been an uphill growth pattern ever since. You know, kind of like the water press fittings, just we're going to go through the differences here with the ACR press fittings. So join the revolution here, the press revolution with air conditioning and refrigeration. In your handouts, there's a handout bar on your right hand side of your screen. It should be. If you click on the little arrow, it'll drop down. There are 3 documents there you can download. This is the technical brochure that is in the handouts. If you have a question, there's a question bar. You can click on the little arrow. The question bar will open up and you can ask a question. And as I said earlier, Rob will be in the background. Rob will be answering those questions as we go. And before we transition from the Conex product to the Isoclima product, we'll just do a quick little question and answer right there before we switch products. So any questions, please don't hold back, ask. we'll get you the answers that you're looking for. Okay, some of the main features of doing this, and probably the biggest one is no nitrogen purge and no flame watch, those two right there. So, no more dragging that nitrogen bottle around the building or outside when you're brazing, whatever it takes. Manufacturers, that's one of the first things they look at when they get a bad compressor back, is they look at the color of the oil and they look at the debris that's inside the compressor. So we'll go through and show best practice on, how to deburr and ream the fittings here so we don't get debris into the compressor in the oil. And then the blackening of the oil, that's when you braze and you don't run nitrogen. That's the oxidation that forms on the inside of the copper, and that gets washed back to the compressor. So that's some of the things that a manufacturer looks for when they get it back. And again, this is in your handouts here, so I'm not going to read every bullet point. We'll keep this moving. Applications are air conditioning and refrigeration and heat pumps. That's the application. It's going to be copper to copper press all the time, and the three locations or three applications are there. I'll just give you two up front. You'll hear this several times. No R717 ammonia refrigerant. The O-ring, it would be a different style O-ring. And no use with R22. Again, it would be a different style O-ring. So they're a very environmental friendly company. That's why they won't go backwards and make a O-ring for the R22 to work. Opportunities, I mean, you name it. It's pretty much anywhere, whether you do VRF, whether you do mini splits, whether you're working in cold storage, supermarkets, power plants, ton of opportunity. You're currently doing it now. If you're working in supermarkets, we got a tiny little gun here we can show you. We're going to go through the guns and what works with our jaw sets and what doesn't. So we'll get all that hopefully cleared up. So one of the biggest differences is currently right now there's two manufacturers on the market. It's Conex Banniger, Maxi Pro Fittings, and Zoomlock. Probably one of the large differences between the two is everything we sell comes in a bag, and it's a Ziploc bag. And the reason for that is we put oil on our O-rings, and we want to make sure that the O-rings keep the oil on them and they're not picking up all the dirt and debris from, being loose in the shelf on your truck or being thrown into a 5-gallon bucket, because we need a nice clean fitting in order to have a tight system. So it could be in a bag quantity of 1, it could be in a bag quantity of 2, 3, 4, up to 5. But when you purchase this, like here's a bag, this has 3 caps in it. So it's going to depend on the size of the fitting, the amount of times that fitting has a run on it. So couplings and elbows are very popular. They'll be usually 3 to 5 to a bag, but reducers and things like that are usually 1 to a bag for the most part, unless they're small. On the back of the bag, it also goes through and explains how the fitting is made. And on the front, it goes through and gives you all the do's and don'ts as far as compatible oils and refrigerants and things like that. So the bags should be opened. The fitting should be taken out. You utilize the fitting. You Ziploc the bag. You put it back on your truck. Try to keep the bags out of UV rays. The UV rays will penetrate the bag and dry out the O-rings. If you have a fitting that's been on your truck for a period of time and you're worried that the oil may have dried up, we have refrigerant oil. You can purchase the refrigerant oil and just lube that O-ring and go ahead and utilize that fitting. So this is a cutaway of one of our fittings. And basically we press around that little O-ring in the center in what we call a B pattern. That's where the B for Conex B Banniger comes from. So if I'm looking right here, that is the O-ring. The black you see right there, that's the O-ring. When we put the jaw on the gun and we wrap it around the fitting, we press the trigger, basically we press on the left side, the top of the O-ring, and the right side of the O-ring. In addition to that, we're also pressing right here where the copper hits the stop, and it's like a copper to copper bond here. And then right here at the edge, there's a lip on the copper. It's almost like if you tighten down a nut onto a ferrule when you're putting in a faucet and the ferrule bites into the copper. That's the same thing that happens here. So that's how the fitting is put together. It's a very robust fitting. You'll see here when we make a fitting in a little while that, this is, the tolerance is really the difference. It's a very tight tolerance on the fitting and compared to water. So that's where the biggest difference comes in. Majority of our fittings are tested up to 900 PSI, but we're only rated for 700 because that's where soft copper is rated. This will be found in your, books. So application, again, air conditioning, refrigeration, and heat pump. Connections, copper to copper only. When you're using a soft roll copper, it needs to meet the ASTM B280 or B88. And what that talks to is the thickness of the copper and how the copper is what they call annealed. And that makes the copper rigid so that when we press, we don't crush the fitting or crush the copper and create a refrigerant flow problem. So the ASTM B280 or B88, that's critical when you're doing a press job. And then of course you can use the straight sticks of K or L. Currently our fitting range is 1/4 up to 1.125". But in the very near future, we'll have 1.375". So this is just a sample. Our 1.375" is only probably within a month, we'll have the 1.375". And then we'll have 1.575", and we'll end up going all the way up to 2 1/8". The O-ring is an HNBR O-ring. Our approved oils, you can see all the approved oils there: BOE, POA, PVE, AB, mineral oil, not compatible with PAG. Okay, our maximum operating pressure, 700 PSI. On the fittings themselves, the fittings will all be marked with pink. And I don't think you're going to see this, but I'll try to put it up there close. If you can see the pink on there, it also says 48 bar. So in Europe, 48 bar, that's equivalent to 700 PSI here in the US. So all our fittings are approved to 700 PSI. We do a burst test on them. We have a 2,100-pound burst pressure rating, and we're UL listed, and that's the important one here in the US. We're UL listed for -40 to 250 degrees on the fittings. So if you're working outside and it's real cold, it's always best practice to keep the fittings in your pocket or try to keep the fittings a little bit warm so that we get a good, good seal on there. It's no different than working with PEX piping outside in the wintertime. We just want to make sure the fitting stays fairly warm. Okay, we're going to launch a poll question here. Rob, launch away.
All righty. Launching now. What is the maximum operating pressure for a joint made with a Maxi Pro fitting? Please select one answer. We got almost 70% of the votes in. I'll give you guys another 10 seconds or so, and I'll close it out. All right. Poll is officially closed. And we have 94% are saying 700 PSI, which is correct. So good job, guys.
Fantastic. Everybody's good and awake this morning. That's great. Okay, so we'll keep rolling here. So this right here, this is just a breakout. Goes through all of your different refrigerants. We just want to make sure everyone is aware of it. And under notes, which is probably the more important side of it, that's where we note that you cannot use this fitting with R717 or R22. This is in the book. This is the important one here when you're purchasing your copper, you're laying out a job and you're gonna, figure out how much of this is going to be rigid copper, how much of it is going to be soft copper. This speaks to that B280 or B88. So that's the wall thickness of the copper. So here you can see we can go down through. The square block means it's a straight pipe. The round block means it's a annealed coil. So a typical 50-foot or 164-foot coil. So we can press all those different sizes. We just need to make sure they adhere to that ASTM B280 standard. This goes through and gives a list of all the certifications basically around the world here. So, a lot of UL for the US. This is what we normally share with an engineer if an engineer questions the product being usable in different areas. So this is what we give them as a supporting document. Also, the Department of Building in New York City has approved the fitting to be used in New York City. So we do have some additional documents. We have some jobs that we list out for different engineers. So if you guys are in the market to do a job and you need help with your engineer, please reach out to us. We'll give out some emails and some different information here at the end of the presentation. Rob, we're going to keep you working here. Poll number 2.
Okay, poll number 2. What materials can be joined using Maxi Pro fittings? Please select one answer. All right, we got 70% of the votes in. We got another 10 seconds or so, and I'll close it out. All right, poll is officially closed. We got 94% are saying copper, which is the correct answer. We only press copper to copper.
Okay, good.
Good job, guys.
Okay, so what we do is in the tech bulletin, again, we take and give you the distance you need and for the head to go around the copper. One thing different between the ACR press and the water kind of makes it almost all the way around and makes the press work. With the ACR jaws, they're going to go 100% around. The jaw actually touches the jaw when it comes to a complete press. So here we're giving you the distance you need to do a straight against the wall press and or an angle press. And this is all using the Romex 4000 jaw set. We also have these in there for the twin turbo jaw set. So the Romex 4000 jaw set, I'll say this a few times. The Romex 4000 jaw set will fit the rigid 300 series or the Milwaukee M18 series press gun. Okay, if we're talking about the twin turbo jaw set, that will fit the rigid 200 series and it will fit the Milwaukee M12 series. So what this does is this is strictly talking about the jaws. This will give you the clearances you need for the jaws to make a press fitting. Also in the book, it's going to go through, it's going to give you all these different dimensions. This is telling you the insertion depth and how far between fittings we need to make a proper press. Okay, and this one here, we'll do it to a braze fitting. We'll do it to a press to press. We'll give you all the dimensions that you need for minimum clearances between them. And the reason for these minimum distances is we actually distort the copper a little bit when we press it. So we need to make sure that both joints are, stay and true and they hold the 700 PSI for the testing. So just different connection points here. We get our minimums, and this is just to make sure all joints stay good. So that's from a press fitting to a braze fitting. If you have a braze fitting there and you're going to put a press fitting in, no problem. If you have a press fitting in and you need to braze a fitting, treat the press fitting no different than you would treat a valve on a compressor, right? Most guys take a wet rag and they'll wrap the valve so they don't damage the valve on the compressor. Do the same thing here. It's just best practice. Protect that O-ring. Even if you are achieving your minimum distances, just wrap the press fitting and go ahead and braze. Again, this goes through, just gives us our minimum distances. And this is all in that tech bulletin. I don't want to read through every one of them. So here's a range of fittings that Conex Banneker offers. Just give you a little breakout here. So this is a flare to press fitting. So here's the flare end, and then here's the press end. Okay, this is about 50% of the sales is flare to press. 40% of the next 50% will be couplings and elbows. And then 10% of the sales after that will be a mixed, reducers and caps for testing if you want to cut something short. So the flare to press, we have two different styles of flare to press. We have this is a copper to copper flare to press with a forged refrigerant nut. This flare is at a 45-degree angle, which is what we want for like mini splits and different things like that. And then we also offer an upgraded one here. This is, we have two different versions. This is actually stainless steel. The seal here is stainless steel. This will come with a rubber a copper crush washer, like you see in the photo on the right-hand side with the stainless steel nut, and that looks like a little flare. That's a crush washer. That will actually go right in here, and you'll go ahead and slide this brass nut over and tighten it up. We also offer this with a stainless steel nut. Now, when you're doing these flares, it's best practice to put a little refrigerant oil, just a tiny bit on the face, and put a tiny bit on the back side. That way, when you go ahead and turn the brass nut and torque the brass nut down, it doesn't grab the copper and twist the copper. Okay, so normally what you'll do here is you'll take and line this up. You'll start the brass nut, you'll make your press connection, and then you'll make your torque connection. All different fittings there. The other thing about our fittings is all of our elbows are considered long way elbows. So we don't have to worry about calculating any friction loss or anything else. They're long way elbows. Our fittings are twice the weight and half the size of our current competition. So you'll find that they're very robust. Okay, you can't, if you drop them, they're still going to be usable. Brand X, if you drop them, sometimes they'll change position and morph. We also have the opportunity with the fittings that we offer. This is a valve, all right, valve on and off, and your Schrader port is here. We could take these, and I already prepped this pipe, and we can slide a coupling right on here. When you put them on, you always give them a little quarter rotation. We can put a coupling on there, and then we can press that coupling on there. So now we have a valve that is press ready. And then the refrigerant, because we're in a refrigerant system, we have to insulate it. We have an insulation kit that goes with it with a Velcro here. So it's form fit. The valve drops directly in, fits nice and tight, and then you just close it up with the Velcro. And there's your valve. So again, we'll give you an email at the end if you're interested in any of this stuff. Let us know. We'll be happy to help you. Just let me just show you one other thing here, just on these fittings. So here's a fitting. That's a coupling that's pressed. There's another coupling that's pressed. Here's another one that's not pressed. And here's another piece of pipe that's, so here's something that's not pressed. I'll go way back here. Try to hold it as straight as I can. You guys know with water that would be drooping dramatically. The difference here is the tolerances of the fitting. Again, these are 700 PSI fittings, so the tolerance of them are very tight, and that is what that's what makes them able to hold up to that 700 psi. Oh, here we go. This is just a breakout sheet. It goes through, shows you, we have a depth gauge, we have the oils, the traps, all the different components. That is in the user technical manual. So if you need any of that type material, we have it. These are the two different press tools. Roethlisberger's the manufacturer of them. This is the twin turbo. All right, that's the one I'm going to be using today. That's the one on the left-hand side. And then the Romex 4000 is on the right. The twin turbo, the jaw sets that are available, we go 1/4 inch to 7/8 in one jaw set. And most guys buy the complete jaw set, which I have right here. And then they'll purchase the 1 1/8 as the spare jaw. Again, this jaw set fits rigid 200 series, Milwaukee M12 series. Our jaw sets have the ability to press water fittings in addition to the Conex ACR fittings. Water fittings do not have the ability to press Conex ACR. Okay, but you'll see the jaws here as we get ready to make a fitting. This is the 4000, Romex 4000 tool. The jaw sets here, they go from 1/4 to 1 1/8. That's how everybody purchases them. And again, this jaw set has the ability to press water. And this jaw set will fit in a rigid 300 series gun or a Milwaukee M18 series gun. Direct change out for those type guns. All right, go through how we're going to do a little install here. So this is just best practice stuff. We have to make sure, we keep the fittings, refrigerant system clean, tight, and dry, right? That's what we're working towards. So we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what we're doing there and keeping the fittings the way we need them. We have currently, it's a 1-year manufacturer defect warranty on the fitting itself. We have an opportunity to take a small test, fill out a little bit of paperwork, and you can go from a 1-year warranty on the fitting to a 5-year warranty on the fitting. And, just make sure we're adhering to all local codes and everything else here. That's what we're saying here. And wear your protective gear as you do. The tube itself, we want to make sure this is the key to a successful press job, is we need to make sure that we're paying attention to the preparation of the tube. So we start at the distribution channel here, and we tell them, we can't drag the tube across the ground and put deep cuts or scratches in the end of the tube. We need a clean piece of tube to start with. So we'll cut a piece of tube, we'll clean it, we'll take and ream it, we'll deburr it, we'll go through the normal steps, and we're going to take and mark the depth, clean the outside of the pipe, mark the depth, slide the fitting on, give a little 1/4 rotation as we slide the fitting on to make sure we don't catch the O-ring on the copper, slide it in place, and then get ready to press. You're going to align the jaws no different than you would on a water press fitting. The other key item, here's the jaws, right? They are just like a water press fitting. They open. They have the size marked on them. You can see they're all marked in pink. Anything for ACR Conex press fittings will have some type of pink marking on them. You just squeeze the bottom. It opens up the jaw. In the center of the jaw, that center rib right here, that's going to go right around the bump, the O-ring on the fitting, and it will squeeze the fitting and it'll make the fitting. In the center here, you always want to make sure that these jaws are clean. So I always tell guys once a day, it's a good idea to go in here and wipe the jaw out once a day. And then just look at your fittings when they're done. This comes all the way down and closes. The jaw touches 100% together. So we need to make sure that we're not distorting the copper too much and getting they get like on the water fittings, you get the little sharp copper tip that comes off the end of them. and you should not get that with the ACR press. You'll get a small one because we're definitely changing the position of the copper. We're maneuvering the copper to get a good press, but it shouldn't be one of those long copper ones that comes out and it's very sharp. These here will be a dull copper tint on the end of them. So preparation is key. So in the kit, you get a rotary cutter. This is the only way to do it and do it right. When we're cutting the copper, when we cut it with a rotary cutter, we put it in there, we put pressure on it. So because we're doing that, we take and we manipulate the copper, we push it in and we push it out. So we need to address that. So we'll take the rotary cutter that's in the toolkit, we're going to make a clean cut. After the clean cut, also in here we have a reamer. We can ream the outside and the inside of the pipe. So we'll just take the reamer. Best practice is put the pipe in the downward position. We don't want the debris to get inside, and we're just going to take and rotate this around a little bit. And we don't have to be Hercules here. We just want to take and get that edge off that we just created when we cut the pipe. We pushed all that copper in and out. So that's all we're doing. We're taking that off. Going to go around the inside, and we're going to take and clean up the inside. When you're done with that, in the kit, there's also a deburring tool. On the back of the cutter, there's also a deburring tool. And I don't know if you'll see this, but normally when you go around here, you'll see some little bits of copper coming out, which they're adding up here on the desk. All right, that cleans out the inside. Then in the kit, you'll get a black Scotch pad, and the goal of the Scotch pad is to just clean the copper off. Make sure, as we just reamed it and deburred it, that we didn't leave anything on there that's going to catch the O-ring. So I clean it. Two things I'm doing here. I just did that so I don't catch the O-ring. I'm also now going to inspect it, and I'm going to make sure that there's no scratches on here deep enough to catch my fingernail in there. If there were, I would have to cut that off and start over. So we can't have a leak path anywhere on this pipe. When we press that O-ring around here, the O-ring doesn't know to fill a crevice. If we were brazing, I'm sure you guys could I could scratch the pipe all day, and if you're brazing, you could go ahead and fill that with the braze. But on this here, we're going to make sure that we have a nice clean surface. Okay. After we have the clean surface, this is a manufactured part. This is a coupling that I'm going to use today. I always just take 2 seconds and I look in and I make sure that both O-rings are in the fitting. Doesn't matter what size. And as crazy as this may sound, the toughest fitting to make is a 1/4 inch fitting, which is the smallest size you're going to be working with. So I have a 1/4 inch fitting here. All right, that's a 1/4 inch elbow and a pipe. Normally what you'll do when you're dealing with 1/4 inch is sometimes you'll have to take the deburr and go around the inside of the pipe first. That will allow you to get the inside of the reamer, okay, into that pipe, because it's almost the exact same size. So guys will take shortcuts because this is 1/4 inch and no one thinks that 1/4 inch is ever going to give them a problem. And then they'll push that fitting in there and they'll dislodge the O-ring. So 1/4 inch, believe it or not, that's the one I would pay the most attention to. But if you follow this best practice, it'll really save you some aggravation. So then in the kit, we give you this depth gauge and a marker. So what I'll do here is I'm going to take my piece of copper that I just cut. I'm going to take my depth gauge. I'm going to find out which size I'm working with, and I'm going to put it right into the depth gauge. And you can see as I drop that down in there, there's a window cutaway. And that window tells me I can see it. Everything here is, I can see everything. I don't have to get a gauge out. And I'm just going to mark that copper. And what that does is that now gives me the ability to say, okay, when I slide my fitting on there, if I hit that black marker marking right there, that means my fitting is all the way in position. In the fittings, in the center of the fittings, we also have a stop. But when you're first getting used to this, you see on the left side here, they're showing you with the depth gauge and hitting the right spot. And then on the right side, they're showing you just double check it. So if we were to double check it, here's our mark, here's our fitting, and that's about where we would be. Okay, so I'm going to take this fitting. There's my mark. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to get just a little bit of a quarter turn. And I've went all the way to my black magic marker. So that fitting is all the way in the proper position. So then what we're going to do is I'm going to go into the jaw set. I'm going to get my 1/2-inch jaw. We'll get the twin turbo. This gun works pretty much exactly like every gun on the market here. I'm just going to take this lever. I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to pull it out. Take my jaw set. I'm going to slide the jaw set in. I'm going to push the pin back in place, rotate it down, lock it in place. Here's the jaws. Let me release my gun. Okay. This rotates around. Also has an LED light when you hit it. You got a yellow button over here down on the bottom. If you start your press and you're unhappy with your press, just push the button. That will release the jaw, and it will release the hydraulic pressure going up on the ram. So you can undo your jaw and do whatever needs to be done. As far as the batteries, you got the push button like almost everybody has now. You can see how much juice you have in your battery before you start your press. The other thing this tool will do is it will check the battery before it allows it to start pressing. It wants to make sure it has enough capacity in the battery to complete a press so you don't ruin any fittings. In the case that comes with the tool, you get a spare battery and you get a battery charger. The battery charger is actually really nice. It's liquid or fan cooled, and it only hunts the battery cells in the battery that are dead. So you stay away from that hot battery syndrome that you may get with brand X, Y, or Z. So, but again, you don't need this tool. You can have a Milwaukee or rigid tool. You do need the jaw sets. That's critical. So I have my gun ready to go. Here's the gun. I'm going to open up the jaws. Here's my fitting. You see the center, the bump there where the O-ring is. That's going to go directly into the center of the tool. And I'm going to go down here to the trigger, and I'll try to get this as close to the camera as I can so you can see it when I press it. It's lined up. I'm pressing. And that pressed the fitting. Take that out. Gun out of the way. That is now a fitting that is ready to be pressure tested to 700 psi. And this right here is what I was saying. We do change the form of the copper a little bit, but we press on both sides of the O-ring. We press on the top of the O-ring. We press all the way out here at the end, and that's where that little extra copper meat is that bites into the copper. And then we press all the way over here near the stop where it goes copper to copper. So it's a 3 press over the O-ring and then 2 presses on the far ends of the fitting to make sure we go copper to copper. And that is how we make a fitting. After we make the fitting, okay, that's showing you making the fitting. And we're pressing. Okay, after the fitting is made, we always like to take and mark it. And that way, if you have a supervisor on the job or whoever may be on the job, that way they know that that fitting has been pressed. It's a good visual. So normally we'll go, we go around the pipe, we'll go around the fitting, and then if there's a supervisor on the job, we'll go across the fitting. That way there, it's a visual. You can walk the job and say, okay, this fitting, that fitting, all of them have been pressed. Okay, Rob, you're up. Poll.
All right. Next poll question is launched. What is the correct tool for cutting the copper tube end square? Please select one answer. Gonna give you guys another 10 seconds. Got 70% in again.
Great. How you make it out with questions, Rob? You getting any?
No questions as of yet,
Okay.
but we are here to answer if we do have any questions, so please feel free to use that questions box. And poll is closed. We have 100% saying rotary tube cutter, and that is the right answer. Good job.
Great. All right. We'll keep rolling. System testing. So just follow your best practice here. You're going to use nitrogen for testing. One thing here, mini split world, VRF world, we're going to elevate those pressures. We're not going to be at our normal 350-ish. We're going to elevate these up. We want to be in that 500, 525 range, 550 range. We can go all the way up to 600 PSI when we're doing our testing in the mini split world. If you're going to leave it overnight, just be aware of what the outdoor temperature is. And if you get that temperature swing, you can see here they reference it, based on temperature swing and your nitrogen pressure swing. But one of the most important items here is some guys will leave a vac pump on overnight. And when you're using press ACR fittings, you'll only have the ability to draw it down to 200 microns. So you'll never go below 200 microns when you're doing a press job. I just want to make everyone aware of that, because sometimes guys will leave them on, like I said, overnight, and they'll think they're going to get down below there. You're not going to. The O-ring will allow, it just shuts it down basically at 200. You're not going to get past 200. This runs through the warranty portion. Conex Banneker website's on this page. This is real small. I know it's difficult to see, but we just want to make sure that everybody knows that this is in the back of the book. It runs through basically a breakout of how Conex Banneker views their 5-year limited warranty. So we want to make sure everyone has that. Okay, before we switch gears, does anyone have Conex Banneker questions? Rob, you want to open up the mics, see if anybody has anything?
Sure can. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Although I don't know if it worked.
Or attendees or staff? Because you muted me.
Did I?
Yeah. Make
You're
sure you're
unmuted now. I can hear you.
Yep. Yeah, I unmuted it.
Okay.
All right. You're experiencing technical difficulties. We'll roll. We got the question box. So, all right. Switch gears here a little bit. We are going to go into Isoclima. Isoclima is the brand name, and they offer several products. We've been importing Isoclima products for about 5 years now. It's an Italian-based company. They actually control everything. They go to the copper mines. They buy their raw materials. They bring it into Italy. They manufacture they insulate, they do the whole process here, and that's not so common in the line set world. So Isopolar, we've been selling Isopolar for years. A new product that they're launching, we actually have a container about 5 days away. It's called Isotech. What the Isotech does is it has a coating on the outside of it to help resist formicaric corrosion. And then they also make a tape so that we can make sure we get all of our joints sealed properly and no exposed copper on our refrigerant lines and mini split heat pump lines. So this is the pre-insulated line set. We have half, 3/4, and 1 inch insulation for the jackets. And we've been selling this, like I said, for years. It's got on the copper itself, it has a foot marker. So if you buy a 50-foot roll and you use a portion of it, you'll be able to tell how much of it you've used. So right here you can see the 25 out of 50 feet. The brand name on here will be Isopolar. And there it is, the ASTM B280 stamp. And you're dealing with 3/8 copper here. So all that information is printed on all of our rolls. It's extremely helpful because a lot of guys, you waste a lot of line set. We offer most of the sizes in 164-foot lengths. This will really give you the opportunity to cut down on waste. You can use it on more jobs. Just make sure when you're done, you crimp the end over so you have a nice dry line set. So again, we make it in single, we make it in dual, we have it in 50, some are in 82-foot lengths, some are in 164-foot lengths. You can buy it as a single or a double. So the one on the left is a single. The one on the right, those lines are actually joined together. They're insulated. We have a true 1/2 inch of insulation around them, a true 3/4, and a true 1 inch. And it's all ASTM B280. Okay, Rob, keep everybody engaged. Poll question number 4.
All right. Poll question number 4. What size insulation is available on ISO line sets? Please select one. %70 in. Gonna give you guys a few more seconds here. I haven't had enough coffee yet today. All right, poll is closed. And we have 89% saying all of the above, which is the correct answer.
Right. Most common is 1/2 inch. So yeah, we're still good there. Okay, so Isopolar, that's the brand that we just showed you. It's the white line set with the true 1/2 inch of insulation. This also is the tear resistant outer coating. So when you're pulling it through the floor joists, it shouldn't tear and rip as some of the old style black liner did. This is a breakout. It tells you the single pipe coils and what sizes we have and what lengths of those we have. And then it also breaks out the twin pipe coils. And we only offer them in 50-footers at this time. So you have 2 different options. Everybody likes to do things a little bit different. This gives you the options of which way you want to run your Isopolar line sets. Rob, we're just going crazy here with poll questions.
Keeping everybody engaged.
This one, I don't know if this one's in the right spot though. That's the only problem, is it?
Formicary corrosion.
Yeah, go ahead, throw it up there. Let's see throw it up there.
All right. What causes formicary corrosion? Please select one answer.
Wow. We have to talk about it. People know about it.
All right. We got 70% in. I'm going to go ahead and close this.
All right, great. So that's great. 71% checked in. 88% of that 71% said all the above. That's the correct answer. Water, oxygen, and some organic chemical. So there's different pockets in the U.S., and we're one of the few, manufacturers. Basically, we represent this manufacturer. We're one of the few manufacturers that we don't mind talking about formic air corrosion, and we have seen it with our isopolar product. We haven't seen a lot, but we've seen it. So about 2 years ago, we went back to the manufacturer and we started having conversations about formic air corrosion. And you can look it up online, Google it. You'll see all the big people in the industry, the carriers, the trains. Everyone has talked about formic air corrosion, what causes it, and what you can do to try to alleviate it. So we went back to the manufacturer at Isoclima and said, we've had this experience, not a lot, but we've experienced it a little bit. We want to come up with a product that will resist formic air corrosion. So they went through about 9 different types of protection to put on copper and try to come up with a solution for formic air corrosion, because it's a headache when you have a job that's installed and done and you end up with a leak somewhere in the middle of the pipe or something along them lines. It's difficult because you got to replace the whole line set. So we went back to them and they started doing testing, and we now have a formic air corrosion resistant line set. And this would not be used in every application, but if you have an area where you do your installs where you've experienced formic air corrosion, or you're along a coast, a shore where you have salt water, if you're in a region where you have high sulfur content in the air, the quality of the air, high sulfur content, anything along those lines, this would be a good product to utilize. And what they've done is if you've ever installed an oil line that's shielded, or a propane line that's shielded with the yellow coating on the outside or the red coating on the outside for the oil lines, we looked at all those options, but none of those were really viable. So they kept working and finally, after, like I said, about 9 different versions, this was the version that everyone settled on. And basically what we do is we put a clear coating on the copper as it's being manufactured. So the copper comes out, and then this coating gets sprayed on, then the insulation and the jacketing gets put on. And it's all done at the same manufacturing facility, which is a really big deal, because a lot of times, someone may produce the copper, but they may not be the one that's insulating the copper and putting the outer protective shield on there. So we now have a formic air resistant copper. Our first container from Italy will arrive on Sunday. So if you're in one of those areas where you have aggressive air, VOCs, and water and oxygen all in one location, we have an option now. So in order to prove it out, again, we're still ASTM B280, so we still qualify to be pressed. This is a sample, and realistically, I'll pull this out a little bit. There's the copper. You can't really tell that there's a difference. You barely see it. And again, this is ready to be pressed. You're going to go through the same process. You're going to cut it. You're going to ream it inside and out, deburr it. You're going to take and clean it. You're going to mark your depth. You're going to slide your fitting on. You're going to press it. It's no different than the copper you're currently using, except this has the clear outer shield on it. So what happens is water gets inside of the jacket, right? Water will run inside the jacket. This insulation doesn't absorb the water. So the water will stay on the copper, and then your atmospheric with the VOCs will collect, mix with the water, create a little bit of acidity, and that's what eats away and causes the formic air corrosion. And for people that have never experienced it, basically what you'll have is you'll have little pinholes in the copper itself. It becomes acidic, and it will eat little pinholes into the copper. So that's what formicaric corrosion is. We've come up with a solution for it, and we're real happy to have a solution. So that's what it would look like if it were in. That's just a sample. Here's a roll, and this will say ISO AR, so ISO Armor. That's the tag name for it. Isotech. They call it's an armor shield, is what their armor coating, and the patent is pending on that. But this is the same outer jacket, same insulation. Just this has the clear coating on the copper, and again, it's marked with by the foot. It's marked with ASTM B280. Everything is on the lines, so you have all the markings you need, and you're good to go there. All right, so in order to be comfortable with the copper and launching the copper, they had to do some testing. So you can see in the bottom, the testing is 480 hours, and they did 2 tests in Italy, and then they did 2 tests in the United States. And this is the breakout from those tests. So here's just bare copper pipe at 144 hours, 240 hours, and 480 hours. And then that is the ISO Armor coating on the 2 pipes in the middle. And they ran through the same exact test. And then after that test, they were satisfied that we have a formicaric corrosion resistant copper. And then during manufacturing, they'll run the copper, they'll spray it with the clear coating, and then they'll put the insulation on and roll it up and ship it. It's also going to be marked a little bit differently. So normally the isopolar is marked with blue in the wrappings. The ISO Armor will have an orange wrapping on there, so you'll be able to tell the difference between the products. Isopolar, which is our standard line, which is still fine. We're still selling it. That's going to be the lion's share of our sales, but it'll be marked with the blue as it always has been. That'll be the clear shielding around it. It'll be marked with blue, and then the ISO Armor Isotech product will be marked with orange wrapped all the way around it. So we're really excited to launch this. Here's the breakout of all the different sizes. So 1/4 up to 7/8. We have 1/2 inch insulation only on this brand right now, and we go from 50 footers to 82 footers to 164 footers. So that's what our breakout is. If you have a need, we have the product. And then they also offer tape, and this is to make sure that when you get to the ends of the runs, if you cut the insulation back so you can make your fittings and everything, and then you put that piece of insulation that you cut off back on, you have the ability here to seal all of your joints to make sure you have a full wrap all the way around there. We don't want refrigerant flashing off on a mini split somewhere different from where we want it to. We offer it in black and in white, and we at Wells Darby, we have that on our shelves.
Hey, John, I got a good question here about soldering and brazing the Isotech copper. Is there any effect on that coating?
Yeah, so far everything we've done, I would clean it just to get it's a very thin coating on there, but I would just take and clean it off with a little piece of Scotch pad, put it in there and braze away. They've seen nothing, no accelerants or anything like that. They haven't seen any of it flash off. We had them do some brazing with it. We also had them do some press fittings with it. We sent press fittings over, and we haven't seen anything that's going to tell us we shouldn't be doing, pressing or brazing on that new coating. When they actually get the copper, it's actually difficult to even see the difference between a standard piece of copper tube and the Isotech. Once you feel it with your fingernail, you can feel the difference. And if you take the Scotch pad to it, you can feel the difference a little bit. So I'll just take a piece, here, I'll take this right here. Okay. So you can see I cleaned it up. I basically right here, I've taken that clear layer off. And then right here, you can see the clear layer is still there. So that fitting right there, I would do that before I braze it. I would do that before I press it. And,
Okay, so
that'll make
basically,
sure you got a good clean surface to work with. Say it again.
basically handle it the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Handle it the same way. Yep.
Okay.
Just use your best, practice when you're doing your air conditioning and brazing and such.
Yep.
Okay. It's on you. Poll question.
All right. Next poll question. Last poll question.
Yep.
All right. What product on the market today is resistant to formicary corrosion? Please select all that apply.
That's a layup, huh? Well, they sat through a lot of poll questions in a, long class with a lot of different information.
All right, I'm gonna give you guys another 5 seconds or so. We got 80% of the votes in. And we're gonna close that down. So we got a whole bunch of votes there. Everybody's gonna be correct in this one.
All right, good. All right, we want to thank everybody for giving us some time this morning. If you would like the test, my email is J, the letter J, RESSO at wellsdarby.com. WALESDARBY. Just send me an email. Tell me you'd like the test. I'll get the test sent over to you. You'll take it. It'll be in a format where you don't have to print it or anything else. You can just answer the questions, on there live. If you'd like to reach out to me when you get the test, my cell phone number, 908-300-1576. If you want to call, say you want the test, you want to text, tell me you want the test, or you want to email, tell me you want the test. Or if you have any questions that you haven't asked, you need answered. If you need to spec a job, we'll help you do that. You need to know a distribution channel to get the copper line sets or the fittings, we can help you with that. If you have any questions about the jaws, we can help you with that. The email is J, the letter J, RESSO, JRESSO at wellsdarby.com. WALESDARBY.com. And if you print out the Wells Darby residential line card, you'll probably find the email on there. Rob, did you figure out how to open up all the mics if anybody has any live questions?
Yes, and I'm going to open it specifically to John Denome. He had a question regarding the lifespan of the O-rings, but I need him to be a little bit more specific on that. So I'm going to open it up to him first.
Yep.
John, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm just wondering, there's all these different products with O-rings in them, with press fittings. And I'm just curious what the manufacturers say the lifespan of the O-ring is, how long it's going to stay tight.
We fall right in line with everybody. It's a 25-year O-ring. So, falls right in line with water. But agreed, it's a 25-year lifespan. If you're expecting to, put something in that's going to have to be there more than 25 years, you may want to go a different avenue.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for attending.
Thanks for being
John,
here.
are you currently pressing?
My company has press machines, but I don't have one on my truck.
Okay.
I'm a little late to the party. Being a little older, I'm old school.
Yep. Yep. That's fine. You know, it's different. It's definitely different, but it saves a ton of time, and humping that nitrogen tank around gets a little difficult. And you know, I don't know if you're doing mini splits or you're doing, you know, VRF type jobs. Most of the VRF type jobs, what we're seeing some contractors do is they're actually taking like the refrigerant branch unit boxes, the RBUs, and they're taking them to their shop, and they're doing all the brazing at their shop and getting them ready for press at the job. That way they don't have to get a fire permit. So
Right.
separation tubes, the RBU boxes, they'll do all the brazing at their shop, run the nitrogen at the shop where it's a nice, you know, you're working at a normal height and everything else. And then they'll have them out to the job site, and then it's just press at the job site. And when we got residential guys that are taking condensers and air handlers and they're bringing them into their shop, and they're converting them, they're either cutting off the swedge or they're brazing a piece out at their shop when they're running nitrogen, so that they're pressed when they get to the job site on the residential side. So guys aren't in the attics for hours at a time, you know, sweating at 140 degrees.
That's a great tip. Thanks.
Yeah, certainly. All right, so Rob, we answer all the questions?
I believe we got all the questions. I got all the mics are now live. So if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to shout them out.
What was the cost of the guns?
So we sell to distribution. So I'll throw a ballpark number out there. Gun and jaws, call it approximately $2,500. If you're we normally we run some specials every once in a while. When you buy X amount of fittings, you have the opportunity to get
$500, $2,500.
That's pretty cheap.
Yeah, and again, we run some specials every now and then. If you've got an interest, we can, you know, try to figure that out. Sometimes we'll, you know, based on the amount of fittings we utilize within the season, you know, we have opportunities to do different things.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys?
Hey, John, Bob Lippman with Ferguson. How you doing today?
Say your name again?
Bob Lippman with Ferguson in Buffalo.
Hey, Bob, what's happening?
How you doing?
Good.
Good. Got one quick question for you. My biggest competition for a product like the Conex is Zoom Lock. Could you just go through the features and benefits over the Zoom Lock product?
Absolutely. Our fittings are twice the weight and half the size, so much more robust. Our fittings press exactly like a water fitting presses. So for guys out there that are water press guys, this is more familiar to them. Zoom Lock gun presses off to the side a little bit. You have to line it up differently. So water press guys usually struggle with that because muscle memory tells them to put the center of the tool directly over the bump. Our fittings come in bags, so it's less likely to pick up any dirt and debris onto the O-ring that could create a leak. And you actually have a price advantage over Zoom Lock with Conex.
Thank you, sir. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Bob, I'll be out there to see you guys in a month or so when this is all over, so I'll let you know.
Look forward to that. I got a couple of things lined up for you.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, guys, if you have any other questions, you know, you can email me or call me. If you need any additional classes, you can go right to the Wells Darby website. We got free classes today on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you on another webinar. Thank you, guys. Rob, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.